Welcome to another episode of the Angels, Positivity, and Love Show. Incredible guests the world over, amazing insights, a lot of wisdom, but I would say just lots of high vibe and love for all of you, for myself. I love doing this show. And these guests are very special. They're very kind to come back on in this instance and share what they do, their take on the world, their recent experiences. We have somebody who's just been to Ukraine and back. Can't wait to hear about this. But Iwan Brioc, Welsh theater director, so from Wales, non-duality teacher, mindfulness meditation instructor, and more. Podcast host, just a wonderful human being who's here to help out humanity, to help humanity slow their roll and get into their hearts more. Ewan, great to see you again. Thanks for coming back on.
Thank you. Thanks. I just came to my mind to for your listeners because there's not much knowledge about Wales in America, I would say, but maybe your American audience don't know that there were more Welsh ancestry, people from Welsh ancestry that signed the Declaration of Independence than any other ethnic background. Did you know that?
Ooh, it's a liberating thought.
Yeah.
I love it. Um, and beautiful country and lots of nature, lots and lots of nature and
Mm.
castles, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, and beaches and everything.
Ewan, talk to us about the biggest picture first before we talk about Ukraine or anything else, the human condition. What do you see happening with all your decades of experience? And you've been on some mind, body, spirit panels with a few other folks, Leanne
Mm.
Whitney, Paul Sugar. You shared so many personal stories and near-death experience, your trip to Egypt or Israel as well, Israel, I think. And you've shared so much there, but let's go big picture. Everyone's always talking about a higher frequency for the planet. There's a lot of change coming. Mankind's lightening up a little bit. We can all use a little bit more kindness, compassion,
Mm.
and love. What do you see happening?
I think there's a term that's used in politics, and it's called flooding the zone. And I think it's a tool, you know, mostly of the right of the political spectrum, which is to give a lot of disinformation and information, um, and it's about flooding us with so much information um, that is posing as fact, um, that we can no longer distinguish what's true anymore. And I think AI, not necessarily through political intentions, um, through what's called AI slop, is being generated. So I'm sure people are noticing that their information is now cluttered with things that are not real. Um, so what is happening is kind of like this. I feel that the zone is being flooded, and we're really struggling to find signal uh, to noise to get that ratio where we find our lives kind of coalescing around mm, values or meaning. Um, and I think that's rattling us. Um, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's calling for us to actually really focus on what the signal is. And this is very much about what you do, Michael, is open us up to other signals, and to make ourselves sensitive to that.
For a little while at least. It isn't regulated yet or taxed, and
Mm,
very fortunate. And there's no flooding of information on the angel front yet.
mm,
Speaking of which, free speech, without picking any countries or anything like that, censorship free speech seems to be a very interesting situation. I can certainly remember 1988, 1989 sitting in university and unfortunately not being very brave. I had a football player next to me in a particular class of a particular type of class where if you kept your mouth shut, you could get an A. But if you
mm,
did what the football player did, very smart fellow, he challenged everything. I'm not sure he passed. And I
mm,
saw a flood of, you could say, new ideas coming in. And if you didn't challenge them, again, you did well in the class. If you
mm,
did the Platonic thing or the Socratic dialogue and you were like, hey, what about this? What about this? You didn't do so hot. So I kept my head down. I don't look favorably back on that. I don't regret it. I got a good grade. But would I do it differently? Probably. And so I thought that was the height of tightness of control. I honestly never thought I'd see it again in my lifetime. I think we're seeing more control. Do you have a gentle way to remind people that this is where the action is? And it doesn't really matter what's going on. It doesn't mean put your head in the sand like I did in the late 80s. What's your philosophy on all of that stuff?
Mm, yeah, I was talking about this earlier today, actually, that when I create labyrinths, there it stirs the field. You talked about stirring the field.
Let's have you mention as a theater director, you have a bunch of different modalities, different sets of plays. Traditional play, people go to a playhouse and see. You have something called a labyrinth, sensory labyrinth. I mean, people can look you up in Wikipedia. Under sensory labyrinth, you'll be there.
Mm,
Explain what that is first.
sure. So I started out in theatre and education. Uh, and most people, when you think about theatre, they think of going, paying tickets, they sit down, they watch a play, they applause at the end, which is great. It's beautiful. And usually there is a proscenium, which is kind of like a frame, a fourth wall, and you're looking at the play and the actors telling the story. But theatre wasn't necessarily in its origins that. And then I studied with a guy called Boal, Theatre of the Oppressed. It's participatory, so the play presents a real situation in people's lives and is presented a second time, and the second time the audience can shout stop and come up and try and change the story. And when I used to do that in the early 90s, I noticed something changed in the audience. They would just look at each other and laugh and think, well, I can get up on stage and be part of this and actually show what I would do in that situation. And I realized that something had changed in the consciousness. And then I encountered the work of Enrique Vargas, a theater director from Colombia. And I realized there's even another stage in theater, which is most people think of immersive theater, um, where you go into an experience, an immersive experience, and you're on your own and you meet the characters in the play as you walk this path. And again, I noticed some change in consciousness when I started doing this in 2000. Um, and in this consciousness, it was so liberating for people because they realized, my God, why is this so familiar? Why I'm walking in this path and I'm in this play and I'm the main character in this play. And I'm creating the story as I go along. And this feels so familiar. And then they suddenly realize this is what it all is. This is this is what's happening every day. And what happens is, and it's difficult to describe, and most people who get this can't speak at the end. That's the best feedback. They just sit there in such peace and bliss because they realize it's all a play, it's all theater, and it's all perfect.
Love this. And we're going to get you talking more about this with the Ukraine trip because you were invited over to basically put on shows over there. And I would argue or say you affected consciousness. You saw a lot. You're going to share that in a little bit. But back to censorship and free speech. And essentially, there's an attempt to control. It always has been. It's part of human nature. It's up here, ego thinking you can't be shocked by this. There's gambling going on in a casino. And then there's something else down here. Talk to us about these dynamics, but what are you seeing with your experience? Is it everywhere? Brazil, US, Europe?
I wouldn't say it's everywhere, but it's on both sides of the political spectrum. We have in here at the moment, there's a organization called Palestine Action that you're not allowed to promote. It's a prohibited terrorist organization, and they're only branded a terrorist organization because they threw a paint on a army jet. Um, but if you have a T-shirt with Palestine Action or a placard, they'll arrest you. And this is shocking to us in the UK. There's quite a fun joke going around where people wear T-shirts saying plasticine action, and some of those are being arrested by police who maybe they're dyslexic or something. But there's something very, very wrong going on the left and the right in terms of allowing people to express themselves and express an opinion. Uh, and um, well, it's difficult to go into it without actually um, seeming to be against a certain religion. But um,
Talk
you know,
about resistance, rejecting versus
yeah, but
the heart is already there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we think about what's happened in history and why did we let that happen? Well, you can make the claim that we didn't know it was happening, the Holocaust, for instance, but now we know what's happening, and we still don't do anything about it. Not really. I think there's a sense of learned helplessness that we just, how can I make a difference? Um, but it only takes, and this is a beautiful thing that your fellow American Mark Ruffalo, I heard say once, is if you're feeling hopeless, you're not doing enough, and you're not active enough. And when I why I went to Ukraine is as an act of solidarity because I feel I have to do something. Um, but I will only go where I'm invited. I don't force myself anywhere. So I was lucky to be invited. But I'm reading about this flotilla that's heading towards Gaza right now and into danger, and the solidarity that they're getting is fills my heart. Really does fills my heart. So we're talking about freedom of speech. Um, I think in a way it's the wrong question. Um, I'm going to talk about film now that is coming out in October, and it's a good friend of mine that made it. I went to film school with him. He's called Kirk Jones, and the film is called I Swear. And it's I saw a screening last year, and I cried about 5 times. I laughed all the way through, and it's about a fellow called John who grew up in Glasgow who has Tourette's syndrome, and it's very funny, and very very moving. I recommend it to all your listeners when it comes out. And why it's so moving is because John, who involuntarily says the most horrible things to people, and interestingly, quite accurate often. The thing you should least say, he says it, you know. Uh, uh, and there's this realization that it's not him. He's not doing it. He can't control it. He's not responsible. And the compassion and care it takes to actually recognize that in the characters around him and supporting him is a beautiful thing to watch. And I think when it comes to free speech, which is people spouting whatever they're thinking, the problem isn't the thoughts and the speech, it's the identification with it. We are not our thoughts, and that's what's so powerful about this film, because here we are with somebody who can't help but express whatever's coming up. Um, he is not what he's saying. It's not him. And I would say that for everybody who's so identified with this a belief or a value, that's not who you really are. So free speech becomes kind of irrelevant unless we realize that.
There's an expression, everyone is good where they are right now, or a version of it, everything is perfect as it is right
Mm.
now. And that's that access or the opening to allow for all as it is.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about this?
Okay. Well, I can come to the final circle of working with this group in Ukraine, if it's okay to talk about that.
Sure, sure.
So it was a lovely group. I was hosted there by a company called Theatre for Change. If you want to go onto their website and support them in Kiev, they do great work all over Ukraine. So there were facilitators of this theatre. I talked about Theatre Pressed. They all gathered in Kiev, and I worked with them. And there was a lot of resistance. I'm sure they would agree. Um, and it was hard work. I mean, it was the day before the performance was due to open. Um, we hadn't got much there, but I have faith, and my faith was severely tested. It really was. I was very lucky. I had a colleague from Romania, Bogdan Nechivor. He's a very, very good actor and director of the kind of work that I do. There, he was there with me, and if he hadn't been there, my faith might not have seen me through. But a miracle happened. We opened. 120 people went through the labyrinth. And at the end, I just passed the book around. And as I said, that the field was churned, and the people who were resisting the most, who were not ready, basically, were thrown out by the field, not by me, but they just were not there in the end, and nobody threw them out or anything. They just, they weren't ready. Um, anyway, I just passed because at the end, the audience, the travelers, they come out the labyrinth and they write feedback in the book. There's no, and this is a kind of theatre where there's no applause at the end. It's almost like a factory floor. People are coming, you do your thing, you're this little moment of caring that you do. And you do it in isolation because other people are doing it in other parts of the labyrinth. But for the audience, it's cumulative. They're going through this moment of care, another moment of care, another moment of care. And for them, we hear the word angels all the time. People feel angels are looking after them. Um, so I hand the book around in the final circle, and people are writing very moving things there. And then there's a closing circle, and you can see the light has come on. And these people who, many of them were frozen rigid with fear that we were going to re-trigger the travelers. And that is not exclusive to Ukraine. Believe me, a lot of young people are filled with this knowledge about post-traumatic stress or trauma, and they're not approaching it with openness and compassion. They think they are maybe, but there's a lot of fear um, of opening, or what's called triggering, re-triggering trauma when actually, and so there's a lot of avoidance, a lot of not even going close to it when that is not going to solve it. That is not going to help. Um, there has to be the space for people to talk about their trauma and to explore it. Anyway, so it goes around the circle. Uh, Everybody's reading a passage, feedback, and getting a sense that this has been very impactful. And it comes to me, and um, I explain that one of the best feedbacks I had ever in the labyrinth was this fellow who was the head of Pepsi in the Balkans. He came in his suit, and I thought, he's not going to get this. He's a corporate man. But he said something very, very simple. He just said, "You are blessed to share this information."
Hmm.
He just said that. And I felt it. It resonated, but I didn't know what that information was until that moment. I realized, and I said, and this is really hard to say here, and it might be hard to hear. But the information I'm sharing is this is perfect. All of it is perfect. You are at war. You're being, threatened by this superpower. Um, and yet, and I would never have said it at the beginning of the workshop, but at the end, it felt perfect to say it. And it was received, it was received. And it's exactly what you're saying about in this moment, everything is fine.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Resistance, rejecting, identification with any cause. Talk to us a little more about this, maybe taking it out of the Ukraine. The more you're holding on to a certain set of views, even if you're 100%, 110% correct,
Mm.
at some point, there is no right or wrong, just proper understanding. What's that understanding?
Well, this is very easy to prove, actually. Really easy to prove. If you sit for a moment and notice that there cannot be peace while you have concepts, while you hold concepts in your mind. It's a hard cast iron fact. If you sit yourself, you notice if there are concepts, there is not peace. They're kind of oil and water, they're mutually exclusive, I think is the word. And there's a very simple reason for that, because thought is built on polarity, it's a binary, you know. So if you have a concept, the opposite is also true. Um, And even if you believe strongly in that concept to the point of fanaticism, uh, there is a kind of shadow or subconscious that knows the opposite might be true too, and that creates this conflict in the mind.
Can I try to make you laugh and just be like, okay, so here's the metaphor. If
Mhm.
I'm thinking about walking my dog, you're saying I'm not actually walking my dog. And that dog is who? Is it the Nietzsche reference where you're going up the mountain and the dog is your ego in the shadow? What's the dog? Or what are we talking about here? Say it one more time for us. If I think about walking the dog, it's a great thought. And I'm assuming you like walking your dog, like spending time with your dog. No iPhone. You can't be like this the whole time. Like you're present. So the act of actually being in the heart and walking your dog versus thinking about it. Talk to us a little more. You're a non-duality mindfulness teacher. Your whole goal is to inspire without people knowing they're getting inspired, to liberate without them knowing they're getting liberated. So that's your whole raison d'etre. But what's the dog thing about again? What's this about?
I don't know that metaphor, but I can speak from experience of walking my dog, who's sadly, not with long to go. Um, and she's very much in the moment, obviously. Um, but for her, the moment has been reduced to food. That's all she thinks about, you know. And it's obsessive. It's obsessive, and it's sad to see in a way. And I'm wondering, am I going to end up like that?
Oh.
So previously walking her, she would sniff everything, and it would take ages. And I was fascinated to just feel what's her experience of this, using this sense. What information does she receive from those smells, and how rich it must be, the world through her nose. So, and when you look her in the eye, it's the same consciousness, just framed differently. And that's what connection is, isn't it? And I've had that looking in a rock pool at some kind of, I don't even know what it was, some kind of prawn, I think. And the prawn had eyes, and it was translucent. So all that was solid were eyes, and it turned around and looked at me. And I thought, this is the same consciousness, you know? And it's the same in the dog, where we're all looking from the same place. And just we're looking from where our filter is very sophisticated.
I have a dog at my feet named after the very first angel that people usually meet, Joy. So her name
Uh,
is Joy, and she's asleep at my feet right now, but
uh,
her back legs aren't working so hot. She's
uh.
gotten up there, and so it's kind of what you said. Less focus on food, though. Kindness. How does kindness count? Why does kindness count? If you've got a cause or a heavy dose of thinking going on, is there a way to pull the nose of the jet up and not hit the mountainside, not arrive at a judgment or negativity or a conclusion that is rippling non-love, unlove?
Mm, yeah. Well, even if that happens, you have to be kind with yourself too, because in the end, this is just a mechanism, you know. This body mind system is a mechanism. And it's really important to know that's what it is. It's always been so. We've always been territorial. Um, we've always cared for those closer to us than other people. The altruists are very few and far between. Um, so recognizing and accepting that this is a flawed process, flawed machine, um, but it's not who we are, and that's the redeeming thing, you know. Um, and finding that is about opening to sorrow. It's like that beautiful poem, Naomi Shihab Nye, which I often refer to. It's called Kindness. I don't know if you've come across it, but I use it a lot in Labyrinth. And she just said, if you catch the thread of all sorrows, see the size of the cloth, and then only kindness makes sense anymore. Yeah.
That's right back where we were
Mm,
talking earlier.
yeah.
What have you had? what have you had to have like let go of in the last 5 months or a year? Either what has popped up that you've had to release, or what have you realized it no longer serves you?
Um, Something about fidelity. I'm scaling up this course, Coming to Our Senses, um, which is proving really, really helpful for people. I'm working with NHS. I think I've talked about it before with NHS staff. And a common feedback is after the end of the 8 week course, it combines mindfulness and creativity. People say, well, I feel like I'm traveling lighter, which will lead to another thing that we'll probably talk about. And one of the things with scaling up is fidelity. How do we ensure that the course is taught in the way that it needs to be taught to be effective? And now training people to deliver it. There's an element of trust and letting go of it being strictly this way. Um, and this goes for context-oriented arts in general. I got sent just the other day a guidebook by a colleague who's been doing labyrinths from a young age and is really running with it. It's fantastic to see. And his words are not my words. The terms he uses are not what I've taught. And um, it didn't occur to me to correct him. I just said, "What a wonderful thing! Viva la difference!" You know, you're making it your own. You're sharing it. You're expressing it in your own way. And I don't want to police this. Who would I be if I was policing it? Um, and he's filling in the gaps that I've left too. You know, so it's and I've seen that, you know, in contrast to another person who has written a book and got it published and is now suddenly feels she's an authority on sensory theatre and feels I should credit Enrique Vargas every time I talk about it, although I only experienced his performances. I never trained with him. I've taken the essence of what he does and turned it into a applied theatre and and there's this we must protect the practice, and I feel if it needs protecting, it's not strong enough, you know.
Angels, can you share an angel encounter, whether it was dream time, an audience member that you still can't put your finger on, but pops up every once in a while? They had those eyes, and maybe they said something, maybe they didn't, or a stranger somewhere. What do you have that maybe you haven't shared before from way back, from last week? Something about angels.
Well, there are always angels in labyrinths and demons. Uh, and as I mentioned, you know, the demons resist, sabotage, and I don't have to do anything about it. If they're, you know, and this is what a lot of the conversation with Bogdan was in Ukraine. What's the critical mass here? Have we got a critical mass of angels to help the field flow? Uh, and we weren't sure because there was a lot of middle ground, a lot of people frozen in fear. But we just had to keep the faith. So the question, remind me of the question again, Michael.
Angels, something where
Yes,
you
angels.
still today draw upon the memory, a dream, a person.
Yeah.
It stands out.
Well, maybe I mentioned it before. I'm not sure. If I have, it was after a labyrinth in Milan, and it was in a park. Uh, and it was the first time I really feel it was 2008, and it was the first time I feel I'd articulated what context-oriented arts was, um, and it had done what it said it would do on the tin. Uh, Usually, it was through happenstance that it happened, but this time I was able to put it all together. And you know, Italy, absolutely stunning, beautiful place. It was an amazing park with these ancient buildings, and I was walking through this plaza, and I just felt, and I said, you know, we don't get applause in this work, but I felt, and I could hear applause. You know, I could hear it, and I could feel like angels applauding or an audience, a celestial audience applauding. Yeah, like that. Great. This, I'm on the right track.
Why don't we go full stop? We don't need a stage and lights or an audience to do this, but if you don't mind just closing your eyes for a second, breathe
Hmm.
extra, and people can do this at home. They can invite an angel to come in or the universe or love or whatever your terminology is. Just something that's the heart and more, whatever's connecting us all, consciousness, pure love, consciousness, fun consciousness. If you'll close your eyes, Iwan, and then if you don't mind putting your hands out, palms up somehow, like you're at a concert or something, it'll be off camera. No, you don't have to do it my direction. Any way that's comfortable. I will put up one angel named Joy, sneak a peek, and I'll put up four archangels as support. But in a moment, close your eyes. I'll put the photos down. If you don't mind letting angels come in directly, and if anybody needs extra help, either put a hand on your heart, breathe through the mouth, 1 millimeter counts. Exhale like a whale if any thinking pops up. Hey, I forgot my laundry. It's still in the wash. It's wet. And get that accolade, get that love is what it is. Support, guidance, and be surprised. And I'm going to do something at this end. I'm going to just whoosh with my hands a little bit of it's love and above, it's angels. I'm going to blow through my microphone for the audience that's down here today. I'll bring in Hawaii because I love Hawaii. Just a little extra aloha, a little love in the air, Pacific breeze. So one more time. Folks at home, if you have a request, you just need to feel lighter or more relaxed. What will you allow for is kind of the rub. And that's why theater directors do a wonderful job of helping you broaden what you'll allow for. Here it comes. And if you don't mind getting three bonus visuals or hugs or even a kiss on the cheek or an angel, Joy can come in and hold your hand if you prefer Audrey Hepburn in the other hand, full human hand, a touch on the back. One touch goes a long way, or even a few words privately, a mantra, keep going, something significant. You don't have to share it when you come back, but you might. And anyone who wants flowers, now is the time. Ask for your favorite flowers from when you were 8, what the aunt used to bring you, daffodils, roses, tulips. I didn't do it. Don't blame angels. Don't blame Canada. Just allow. That was a South Park reference, a play within a play. Absolutely the hardest hand grenade to bring up in the middle of a mindfulness meditation moment while a show host is blabbing away. And yet, that's the whole point. There are no rules, no structure. If you're in your heart, you're in your heart. You got this. And you're doing it all day long. Flipping a light switch, are you calling an electrician? The light switch didn't turn on quick enough. You're not sure about the light bulb. No, you just flip the light switch. That's total trust and faith. You're already an Olympian at home, gold medalist every day. You just have to think 7% less. Anything that I said was sharp. It's not me. It's Charlotte, the angel, said that. But you're not worrying about light switches. You're not worrying about the placement on the wall, what color they are. Was it a second too fast, second too slow? You're not calling a friend about it. That's almost our instruction. Or your cell phone, since we use that even more. You want to have Michael, Archangel Michael, and Joy and Audrey Hepburn, especially Audrey, if you don't mind just nodding or grunting, let her come in. I'll hold her photo up. If anybody needs to sneak a peek, they can. But have them reveal something about Ukraine that you couldn't have seen from your ground level perspective. They're going to share something that is there's always 4,000 extra perspectives to any dynamic or situation. And yet our brain is taught to know it absolutely in concrete thinking. There's Audrey for the audience. If anyone wants to let her wink, smile, eyebrow go up, shoulder waggle, hands move. Catch perfume from Paris, yet to be invented. Milan, if you prefer. And Iwan, are you getting a little perfume in there just yet?
Subtle.
I didn't do it. Again, don't blame Canada. Just blame Audrey on this one. Have her come in though and show you something you couldn't have appreciated. Just, you're too on the ground. You're too letting your field go out the way it goes out. Let her show you something that's just such an extra beautiful view that angels were appreciating and assisting with. Something that you're like, oh my, wonderful. I mean, I'm not endorsing tobacco and cigars, but it would be like smoking a really good cigar, or if you prefer cigarettes, dab it off. You got to relight it every time you stop smoking. And look, tobacco itself got, definitely turned into a bad thing, but it's a sacred smell, at least scent. And come back when you're ready because we're going to have you share a little bit of what you experienced, but then you've got a couple takeaways here. What did you have something happen for sure?
Ukraine. Well, first of all, it is absolutely beautiful country. It's huge. I mean, I say it's huge. I'm from Wales, so um, but it took 20 hours by train because you can't fly in to just to get to Kiev, and that's not even halfway across. And almost all that journey are beautiful forests and mountains. It's a stunning place, and the people are stunning. Beautiful people, strong, tall. Like you can just sit anywhere, and it feels like a catwalk. Um, um, and and yet brutalized. And I think we have to recognize that post-Soviet countries, there is a brutalization that's happened over several generations. Uh, that causes this individualism, very strong individualism. And what I felt when you're talking about hugs is that we really, people don't hug each other enough there.
Hmm.
And maybe the whole world is becoming that because, the computer, the AI is offering, if AI never, yeah, it never contradicts you, does it? It always, if you tell it it's made a mistake, it says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, let me correct it." You know, it's a comfort blanket that wraps your brain and gives you what you think you need. But we all need hugs, you by angels, but by each other as well. That physical contact. And now, because of this fear of the Me Too movement needs to happen. But just like this huge fear of pedophilia has restricted the freedom of our children, it's restricting the legitimacy of physical contact,
Hmm.
intimacy that isn't sexual. You know, it's not happening. It's dying out. Um, we try and address that in sensory labyrinth theatre in a safe space, but yeah, there's a lot of resistance.
CNN did a study. This is way back when the media was just a little bit more normal. This could be 40 years ago. They did a study watching a cafe, maybe in Paris somewhere, but somehow they knew the internationality of the background of the folks sitting at the table, couples. How
Mm.
often would they touch in an hour? Or it was 15 minutes or something. But Brazilians came in at something like it must be an hour, 68 touches or 78 touches. Like I think the US was second from the bottom with like 3 touches in an hour, and England wasn't, it was pretty close to that. But there were a bunch of countries that were like 30, 50 touches in an hour back and forth, and I have never forgotten that study. I love it. I think, one touch is worth 1,000 words and
Yeah.
more. And going back to that, what did you experience with your eyes shut that you can share out loud just now? You had your eyes shut for a while, and
Mm.
the audience might not understand what was happening. Did angels come in, positivity, more consciousness, love? What do you call it? What can you share with us? What transpired with your eyes shut?
Yeah, there was a curiosity, Michael, and there's a question I wanted to ask you. It's just this is not maybe it's from the heart. I don't know about angels. Um, right now, when I go onto my feed, there's all this about this meteorite that's coming, interstellar object that's coming around, and it's difficult to find anything that's factual about it. Um, is it UFO or whatever? But it is a legitimate question to ask if they're in this massive universe, why have we not been contacted? And my theory is that actually, if we in the material realm, the distances are just too far. But in consciousness, just like in light, the light that, well, there's no time. When you're traveling at the speed of light, there is no time. The light that takes 8 million years to get from the center of the sun to the surface, and then 8 minutes to get here. For that light, it's the same moment when it was created,
Mm.
you know. And I feel that we are being communicated to, and I think these angels, and you can say this is total nonsense, are that is that alien communication.
Yeah, it's funny you said this, and it's weird because I try not to pay too much attention to an upcoming show because I don't want to influence what could happen. The potential's there. If I don't touch anything and I don't have a set list of questions, the potential is unlimited. But I sometimes taking a shower, walking the dog, or running. I run a lot for 43 years since I was 14. Stuff comes in. So I had a couple things come in, and I'll say them out loud now. Remember, see if I can remember. But time and space was one. You're a master, whether you know it or not, of pulling people out of time and space to go from linear to non-linear. And we'll get right back. That's what you're touching on now. The second was something about an actor on stage. And it's the oy vey, or does every actor right now, do they want to be directors? And I don't mean it in terms of linear. I mean it more like, are they trying to get up here more? Are they playing ball the way you used to expect? Are they manageable, or is everyone so freewheeling these days with mind and heart? I'd love to get your perspective on that. And the third thing was cause and effect for some reason. Cause and effect. What are you noticing about cause and effect these days? Is that your business as well? But the first one was just time and space. Um, Angels have been giving their origin stories. They're angels today. That means not interfering with free will, pure love. Love's a constant. Fabric of the universe is love. But once we start adulting, trauma, PTSD, war, you know something, you got a cause, you resent something, reject, whatever, that's out the window. She said her background was Orion. Sirius for my guardian angel. This one's very cosmic, bigger than people realize. The first one I always do. Archangels, cosmic, and it goes on and on and on. Pleiades, Andromeda, blah, blah, blah. And then meeting actual beings from the Pleiades, Andromeda, Orion, Sirius, and Arcturian, Illyrian, and they can have ships, but they also can just go and materialize. So they're beyond the limits of our thinking of like, oh, it has to be a spaceship coming in, traveling for 100 years. No, they just can pop up. And it's like your relatives. They're more on a light frequency that, yeah. And in our household, I'll share something. This is private, but we have a household member. Their father was a father Episcopalian who's passed over. And it was early in the morning having to do with a medical thing. And I look past the person and I see light materialize in our house. And it was him showing up as light. And I mean, I got jumpy. And of course, I go to the window to make sure it wasn't a car coming around our house because the brain kicks in and says it couldn't be. Now, you just sat still a second ago and you were in your heart. And there's no way it was just a breathing technique for 2 minutes. Did you have any interaction? Smells, you caught a little bit of perfume. Did you have colors come in? Did you hear a voice? Did you get a touch on the shoulder? Did you get anything that you can share out loud?
Um, maybe I'll be honest. Maybe there's an element of cynicism in me about angels. So when I frame them as aliens that are communicating through consciousness, I can accept that.
Yeah.
But
How
there's
about just
something
unconditional love beings or light beings or beings of light?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. But they have all this, yeah. So that's the first thing to say. So maybe I have some resistance to feeling what what absolutely like that moment in Milan when there was a celestial applause and I was laughing my head off. I'd love to feel that all the time. Um, but it's probably there's a kind of intellectual barrier.
Well, look, I'm going to give you a quick thing. It's not like you're on a live or a taped show anywhere. If you'll put your hand out and just feel her like a fireplace, but instead of like fire warmth, if you could just feel sparkle, joy, or if you want to go crazy, pop the Veuve Clicquot and feel a little bit of that Milan celestial celebration.
Yeah.
And people can do this at home. An emoji counts as a comment. You don't have to put words down. Don't feel limited by words or you're admitting anything at home. We get a lot of emojis, but now we're getting very brave folks saying, I saw this, I heard this, I felt this. And they're doing it on their own. These are sometimes off of shorts and everything else. What are you feeling on your hand? Or if you try too hard, it'll be sparkles on your toes, Ewan. And you've also done this with me before for the last year and a half. So I know it's not an impossibility. What are you getting right now, feeling on your palm or elsewhere? And breathe extra if anybody needs help at home. Now I'm sweating profusely. So I think something's happening. Okay.
Yeah, just that behind all the emotions is joy, even the most dark and fearful things. There's joy, and it's a revelation.
Talk to us a little bit about the people that you're encountering who I assume they're actors, or they might be just citizens who volunteered to participate in your Ukraine, labyrinth or sensory experience.
Mm.
Um, were they actors? And what are you noticing today about today's actors? Are they more in the brain? Are they more in the heart? It's both. Are they uncontrollable? Are they absolutely the best to work with versus the 1980s?
Well, I think I don't generally work with actors, although I do sometimes, occasionally. They're more people who are involved in applied theatre. They'll be educationalists, psychologists, artists of all kinds, not just actors. And they'll be, if they are actors, they'll be people who entered theatre not to be seen, but to see.
Hmm.
The people who enter theatre to be seen, and there are plenty of them, and good luck to them, um, would not be interested in sensory labyrinth theatre because they're not a star, they're just a facilitator. Um, and that's not to discount people who take that path. There's this incredible capacity for actors to recognize that, and Jim Carrey's a perfect example, that he was always playing Jim Carrey, and to relax that, to realize that's all a character. There's actually all we are patterns that we associate with, or we have the habit of saying that's me in every moment. Um, and there are people who have this incredible capacity to repattern and become a character and identify with it. And coming back to this film I mentioned, I swear the lead actor in that, Robert Adameo, I think his name is, who's in Lord of the Rings. He's one of the elves in the series Lord of the Rings. You won't recognize him in this film. He is unbelievable, an Oscar winning, I think, performance. Totally immersed in this character, and and the kind of performance that's revelatory, that unlocks something in you. And I think it's such a gift to be able to do that. And I think actors are dealing so much better now with the kind of attention that they get than they used to. You know, you think of the stars today, and they're really able to transmute this attention into something, an offering to the world in one form or another. Um, and I think that's probably, there is an element of learning, and the dangers of addiction, uh, that has helped people to get over that hump. That many actors of my generation, the older generation, you think of the Welsh ones, Richard Burton, Anthony Hopkins, all went through times of addiction. Um,
And
this,
just to make you laugh a little bit, you had a theory on angels, and my theory on actors and a lot of musicians is it's really hard to come from off-world and to pop in as a human and do a stint here without coming into an addiction or tripping up as a human. Part of the human rules or the ground rules or the way it works, the home rules, when you pop in to do a stint
Yeah.
as a human, as a broader soul.
Yeah.
So, and where, why wouldn't you have beautiful beings coming in trying to be doing musicians?
Mm.
That one person of the cars or psychedelic furs or
Mm.
flock of seagulls to influence entire generations with a little more spark and a little more
Yeah.
creativity and
Or even
happiness.
like Beyonce, if you see her live, it's just overpowering her presence. Um, yeah, and how do you deal with because that attention is energy, isn't it? So you have millions of people's attention on you, not just people in your presence, but people thinking about you, and you can sometimes it's like it was my birthday recently, and I had lots of nice best wishes. People had me in their mind on that day more than they otherwise would, and I felt it. But imagine there was just like 100 people, maybe imagine a million people giving you that energy, and is that going into your ego, or what do you do with that? And I think people are really good at better than they used to be at dealing with that.
Well, let's have you talk about that, but let's flip that pancake, as they say in America. Um, let's have you talk about your sensory field, your rainbow light body, your energy, your beyond your physical form, or just being embodied, whatever way you want to say it. I'm going to light some sage though first to change the tone, shift it. You'll catch a little sage in Wales, and we've done this before. You've caught the smoke, campfire smell, and so on. But we'll see if we do it on air. Okay, okay. We'll see. But the question here is like going into Ukraine, did you have to bubble up a little more? Did you start just taking in? It's like kind of like going to a really amazing long veteran winery with all the different bouquets or all the different wines, the selection. There was a lot of vibrancy there. There was a lot of other stuff there. You had to handle it to be able to function. Okay, here's the sage first. People at home can leave your eyes on the sage. It's just sage. But if people want to go nonlinear at sage, catch some flowers, catch some ocean, close your eyes, ask angels to help you get out of your head into your heart. Your heart does the smelling without smelling, Zen thing. Ewan in Wales, are you catching a little bit of smoke? Are you catching sage?
You're wearing me down, Michael. It's working.
That's
Really.
all. I do circles over, I do labyrinth sensory stuff to the brain by talking fast and whatever. But that's an acknowledgement. I get to snub this out now. We've had a lot of balls of light come by as I snub this out. Maybe not today though. But we'll see. Okay. Um, you were going into Ukraine. You're kind of, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you're a professional censor. And you have to use that to judge, who's right for a project, or when you're setting up your original four simple questions, not so simple, by the way. Who am I? What is this? Why is this? What's it like to be me? And there's a cause and effect thing in there that I want to get to in a little bit. But you've got a new podcast. You do a lot of feeling things out. That's what
Mm.
makes you such the artist like that you are. Talk to us about what was going into Ukraine. What did you start to notice? And you were like, oh boy, because there's a lot going on there. And then compare it to something else, another chapter of your life, or what's ahead, or how you started to take it in stride because you were like, I've been here before.
Mm.
How do you want to describe the
Yeah.
biofield?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely this sense of not. I used to write in a book, notes, um, and a few years ago, I just had nothing to write anymore. No preparation notes to write. It's all faith based in that sense. Um, and I actually started the workshop with just showing this is the book that where I write my thoughts or and it's empty. I can't, there's nothing I can say anymore to, or write about this. It's where all of that ends. It's where thought ends and presence begins. And which is not useful for writing a book about it, really. But that empty book is how I feel when I'm going into something. Um, going into Ukraine, I'd fly to Budapest or Budapest, and if anybody goes there, I recommend going to Sechnia Spa, which is this beautiful spa that has pools of every temperature, saunas of different temperatures. Where there's one called Dante's, which is very, very hot. And I'd go there to relax the body before going to Ukraine. I think that helped a lot. And also when I came back on the train, this 20-hour train journey, I'd go back to the spa, and it was very useful to relax the body and allow the heart to open, you know. Um, so that was my ritual. That was the cause and effect. And what's interesting about the spa is there are pools at 20 degrees, 30 degrees, 36 degrees, but there's one which is 38 degrees, which is 1 degree warmer than the body. And you lie in there and you don't want to move. Um, Sometimes it used to be, not anymore, but there used to be a attendant who reminded you to move from there, I think, because you just feel um, like you're back in the womb. Um, and Well, we're coming back to this, a traveling lighter. So, traveling lighter is a podcast where I interview non-duality speakers, and I don't plan for it. I don't have any set questions. It just comes. Um, and an interesting thing came up with Marius Stoyan from Romania, who's a non-duality speaker. The last one is just published today, actually. It's just come on Apple Podcasts, The Traveling Lighter. And he talks about how people go into non-duality with this idea that they're going to be free of their suffering, that the aim is to get away from suffering. Uh, and like, you know, you're going to get into this 38-degree pool and it's going to walk around inside it, and there'll never be any suffering anymore. But what we can separate suffering into two aspects. You could say physical pain, and then you can say mental suffering. And the one is inevitable in this body. It is just inevitable. And the other one is not. But what's coming up in lots of these dialogues is that for some people it's a dark night of the soul. It's this invitation to fall into that suffering and come out the other end. And maybe there's no way around it. Mm.
I have two quotes for you that are right
Mm.
on point here. And one is upbeat and the other is what it is. One is from a NASA astronaut, the other is from a Native American healer, warrior, Chief Geronimo. Okay,
Mm.
first one from the NASA astronaut, Story Musgrave. Getting out of the comfortable path. That's what exploration is all about. I had to reach for my blue notebook. So, getting out of the comfortable path, that's what exploration is all about. And then the second one is from 2017, Geronimo. He said, people choose negativity. And I did the parentheses, and I think this is the right words in the parentheses. People choose negativity, thinking, judging, reacting, over heart, often without realizing it. They still suffer the consequences. Ignorance, not an excuse. Between the two, what's a reaction, or what are your reactions here?
I love that Geronimo quote. That came from Geronimo.
Oh, and he's very quick, and this is an older photo of him. He's like a
Mm.
lightning bolt, and before you can even finish asking the question, he's there in front of you. Again, action, 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 dry wit humor, very informal. When he cursed the first time 12 years ago, I thought, I'm going out of business. Okay. Hear from him privately. That was his quote. Here's something else, and then talk to us about how we still are responsible for how we flow our energy. And we're going to do it all the time. We're all flowers or flowers. You can be a flower.
Mm.
Got it?
Mm.
Okay. You're on, and we're going to start to wrap up in a second, but this is your last big, big, big point. You're taking us somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Geronimo was a warrior, wasn't he? And a serious warrior. You know, that's what. Probably killed a lot of people. Um, and we think about, the peace is the opposite of war. This is something I talked about in Ukraine. In Welsh, there are two words for peace. Um, Tang Nevydd. Heddwch is peace, which is the absence of conflict. And Tang Nevydd is heavenly peace, which is here in the midst of, despite what's happening around us. Uh, and, um, you know, there are people killing each other around the world. Uh, how does one lift oneself out of ignorance in those circumstances um, and being aware of it happening in the world, even if you're not involved in it. Um, if you we can, Americans and British might argue about this, but the SAS is supposed to be the best soldiers in the world. And if you look at their language, they talk about moments of encounter with the enemy as dramas. They talk about um, the enemy as players. So when we talk about the theatre of the war, the best soldiers are able somehow, maybe they're psychopaths, but able to turn it into a play, a stage platform. And in that is this understanding that, I am just a machine, I'm just a mechanism. Um, and what's that got to do with kindness and compassion, you might say? So that's a question that I'm going to just allow people to open to. What do the angels say about that?
People find themselves in roles, and some stick to their lanes in terms of how the roles unfold. And there are many choices inside those roles to make the most of it. Positivity itself is abundance, humor, love. There can be love in any situation. Love is a constant. And here's a hand grenade to just shake up everything we've talked about. This is a rough one. This is something you can bandy around for a long time, but Angel said this, and I love it. Might be the number one quote of all time. You can be happy now in this very moment without a single reason. Tell that to someone protesting about whatever or resisting this or judging that other group. And lastly, you mentioned SAS. Chris Craighead has become a US citizen. I'm so sorry. But he was a UK SAS soldier. He was known as Obi-Wan Nairobi. He was the one that saved 700 people single-handedly down in Kenya when Al-Shabaab took over the tourist, luxury hotel. People were trapped inside, and there was no time to go through the chain of command. The killing had already started inside. But if anyone wants to watch he's told this many different shows, but he's not allowed to actually tell the story. The British government's holding him back on that. Not allowed to put out a book like most other people could. Not a movie yet, hopefully one day. And he's been awarded a lot of awards, been unappreciated in a lot of ways too. Um, but he was doing, practice fire, didn't know what was coming later that day outside of Nairobi, and he gets in his Range Rover, Land Rover, driving on a dirt track. It's very rural, like nothing in sight. And along the dusty road, he sees an older man. I think he's in a suit of some sort, still might be in shorts. I don't know. Older man. And he picks this guy up, doesn't usually pick up hitchhikers. And they have the same first name, same birth date, although the guy doesn't know what year he was born, same day of the month, everything. And they're talking. And then he shows him a knife. And Chris, the SAS operator, his alarms don't go off. It's like a double headed or it's a curve, some sort of a ceremonial knife. And he's like, "What's that for?" He's like, "To chase off or kill demons along the road that I encounter." And it's a very nice man. He lets him off before the next village. And the guy gets out of the car and he describes this. Again, Sean Ryan show. People can find this. It's really a popular clip. It's popped up. The man's demeanor changed, and he said a phrase that I have loved ever since I've heard it because it kind of shook me. May God bless you. May God bless you many times this day. You don't have to be religious or non-religious or anything. You can use God as the universe or love or consciousness or whatever. but may God bless you many times this day. And he said it was just a whole shift. And then he went back to being that guy and he left. And something happened. Like he gets home, he's always got his kit ready. Phone call comes in. This is going down. He shows up at the hotel and he said it was a flow state that you mentioned, a flow state that lasted like 3 or 4 days, well past. He kept going in, bringing 20 people out. Going in, he can't talk about what happened, but like a video game, it went flawlessly, flawlessly. And I think he was in tears 3, 4, 5 days later when the effects wore off. You could argue, and that was Archangel Uriel. If anyone wants to listen to little old 2 cents in Texas here, podcast host. And Uriel's in there, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. But long story short, this is a big world, big universe. The less you know, the farther you go. What would you want to, what has popped up as a result of you can be happy now in this very moment without a single reason? You are a liberator for folks. You
Mm.
are a very good master chef. If we're walking into your restaurant, it's safer to say, no menu. What does Iwan want to present? So, yeah, what do you want to present to us now?
All right, and I'm speaking to you as a Brit, uh, watching the news about America. Is it more important to be happy or to be right? So again, we come back to identification with concepts. Yeah, and I know there are folks so kind to each other in America. Mm. So instinctively, neighborly, you know. It's almost like the American way. And I've encountered it whenever I've been in America, in New York, people coming up and offering their help. And also people, when we got on the wrong tube, just saying you don't want to be on this, you don't want to be on this tube train. This awareness and care. Um, and it's kind of like this other side of the coin. So yeah, that that's where happiness lies.
I did 20 years just about in New York, 4 years in the 80s, and then I said over my dead body I'd ever move back. But of course, 1 year out of college, first real job that happened was in New York, and it's hard to leave a big city. So a lot went down there. I'll do a British example back at you.
Go
Charles
ahead.
Dickens' Christmas Carol.
Touche.
Yeah, and it's like a 78-page book, depending on which edition you got. That's it. And we all think of Scrooge as the meanest guy in the world, and his dream time, the stuff that changed him, was 20 seconds of our time. Little dream, chunk of cheese in the stomach, and all that. Meanest guy in the world, narrowest vision, just focused on one thing and one thing only. It wasn't kindness. It wasn't whatever. It wasn't love. It wasn't the heart. Um, but afterwards, what we forget is at the end, it's the nicest guy in the world. He's a joy bringer.
Mm,
And you're a liberator and you bring the opportunity for people to experience more joy to them. But you would cross the street to go talk with him, and he had the time. He'd look you in the eye. He wouldn't be on one of these.
mm,
And that's pretty cool. So I will end that at my end with you're always 1 second away from pure total love, from being happy, from meeting an angel, from meeting a Pleiadian, Arcturian, or any loving being, a light being, to meeting your passed over uncle or your Aunt Martha who looks out for you in the middle of your golf swing. If you're like, I'm going to smack this, I am on the 11th hole or 15th or 18th. I'm about to close out my best round of play ever. I'm crushing my opponents, whatever, however you roll. Um, but if Aunt Martha came in on your last stroke and was like, smack that baby, and it's your Aunt Martha's voice, you'd shank it and probably go seek psychiatric help. But what do you think half your intuition is? The good stuff. It's an angel reaching you, your relative, one of the playwrights from another country that you used to study, maybe
mm,
hanging around because they love your work. Um, Give us something inspiring to look forward to that's within all of us all the time. Ewan, you're on the spot again, on the
yeah.
clock.
Okay. Well, one of my favorite quotes from Christmas Carol with Scrooge is before he's transformed. And he says, he's talking about Christmas, and he says, if 1,000 people do a stupid thing, it's still a stupid thing. So that's an invitation for you and that jock that was sitting next to you that was always questioning things.
Mm.
Viva la différence.
I love it. And you did spark one last little quote, and I'm gonna unfortunately put you on the spot. You're gonna have to give us a mantra and repeat it 3 times. I think you've done this before on another show, maybe, but the mantra is something you're gonna repeat 3 times. It's not just the mantra you're leaving folks with, and if they say it, they might feel extra consciousness coming in, or even tapping your higher self. But it's people having a chance to experience your energy with good boundaries. Angels will be doing this for years ahead to good, only love and above here. Here's from a Netflix film. I don't remember which one. I just jumped up and I said, "Oh my God, that's the best quote in the world." In the end, love is what shows us life in different colors.
Mm.
I'm still getting my head around it, and it's been like 10 years I've had that quote. In the end, love is what shows us life in different colors. Okay, Iwan, you're on the clock. Do you have a mantra for us? You're going to have to repeat it 3 times. But luckily, you've been on stage before, you've directed plays and much more, shows and everything else.
Okay, I've been 3 times. Oes heddwch, oes heddwch, oes heddwch. And it's a Welsh refrain that the arch druid traditionally says, holding a sword above their head. Is there peace? Is there peace? Is there peace? And you know what? There's always peace. Just here.
Beautiful. Iwan Brioc, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Always a delight and always a treasure hearing
Yeah,
you speak. Thank you.
it's fun. Thank you, Mike. See you again.